Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today, guys, in this lecture, we will be talking about Elastic Beanstalk. My name is 𝐻𝐴𝐵𝐴𝐻𝐴, and I will be delivering you the contents that you need for AWS Solutions Architect Associate level exam on Elastic Beanstalk. So, guys, हम लोग start करते. We'll be starting with Elastic Beanstalk, and this is going to be a fundamental lecture. In this lecture, we'll be just talking things around EBS. So basically, we'll be mainly discussing about the concept of EBS, and I'll be showing you a small demonstration on how can you run an application, how can you host an application through EBS. So mainly like you will be just seeing a very fundamental introduction to EBS in this lecture. So guys, let's get started. So EBS stands for Elastic Beanstalk. EBS stands for Elastic Beanstalk. So basically, this is a platform managed service of AWS. So this fits into the category of PaaS. Okay. So in this case, the infrastructure, that is your network, your servers, storage, even the virtualization, and some of the components of the operating system and the environment that is required you to run your application. All these things are managed by AWS. Application is something that you have to manage. You have to build your application, you have to check it, test it. If it is working fine, then you can get your application, set up a EBS environment and run your application. So guys, what exactly traditionally the process was to run your application, we have to first look into it. So in the traditional structure, so just imagine in a traditional structure, you want to run an application. So you want to host a new application. So basically, in the traditional design, if you want to host a new application, so what was required was the infrastructure. So you had to build a network. So just imagine, like you had to build a network. You had to buy these switches, the network switches. You had to buy firewall, other devices. Okay, and you were required to plan and do a research and then buy these servers. So basically, if you are going to buy these servers, you have to understand which servers are going to suit your requirement. You cannot just randomly buy any server from the market and use it to host your application. You have to realize what kind of application you have. Does your application requires more processor, or does your application requires a graphic card, or is it going to do a very large number of IOPS onto your volume, onto your hard disk? And depending upon the way your application is going to consume your server, you have to buy a relevant server for your application. So buying the server, first thing was realizing and identifying which server will be best for your application was a time consuming process. And once you realized which server is going to be best suitable for your application, you then had to place the order to a vendor who is like whom you trust, and then get the servers delivered by him. The next step was these servers will be provisioned into your infrastructure. So after the vendor delivers you the server, you had to deploy these servers. And after deploying means like you are going to fit them into the racks and you'll be installing all the operating systems relevant OS on these servers. Or maybe like you'll be creating the relevant virtual machines on them. And you will be installing the operating system and doing all the relevant configurations like updating the operating system, backing it up, and installing and configuring encryption tools and installing monitoring agents and everything. So all these things had to be done. Once everything is done, you had to verify if all things are working properly up and fine. If everything is working fine, then finally your application team will put your application on top of these virtual machines or physical servers. and then they will test the application. They'll optimize it as per the requirement. And finally, if everything looks good, these application will be available to the users. And finally, you have hosted your application. So all the process required upfront cost to be managed by organization. Secondly, like you had to make the arrangement of all this physical infrastructure, whether it be the network, the physical servers, or any other physical component or the software components. You have to make the arrangement as soon as possible. Usually it used to take a lot of time, something like a couple of weeks to months. So basically, like hosting an IT infrastructure on traditional basis was a very time consuming process, and this was just done on guessing basis. For example, let's say I have uh, I am expecting like 30,000 users, 30,000 users. So this is my just you can say my expectation. This is my expectation. So I have just uh, I'm expecting something like 30,000 users. Okay, and just this is just um, what you can say a planned you cannot say planned number, but still you can say just you're expecting as per the marketing you have done and all the various different types of like efforts you have taken to make more people aware of the application that you are going to host. You're expecting somewhere like 30,000 users to access your application simultaneously. So this is something what your expectation is. But in reality, what if you do not see 30,000 users simultaneously connecting to your application? What if the real number is just 300 users or 400 users? Okay. So you have, so basically like you have provisioned an infrastructure beyond the actual requirement that you have. Maybe like you have your infrastructure provisioning was maybe like tens of times or 20s of times more compared to what your real demand is. And it can even be vice versa. For example, like maybe like you are expecting, your prediction is that you will be seeing 30,000 users, but in the real world, when you actually host all these servers that are capable of handling 30,000 users simultaneously, you're actually seeing a crowd of like, let's say a demand of 70,000 users on on your website or on your application. So basically the problem here in this type of design is like when you predict and when you buy the infrastructure, you have made an investment. Okay. And this infrastructure most of the time is either over provisioned or under provisioned. Over provisioned, like you're not exactly seeing the demand that is like your infrastructure capable to handle. Your demand is very less. For example, like let's say you have just 500 users accessing your website and you have hosted a infrastructure. You have actually set up an infrastructure and hosted your website so that it can take 30,000 users simultaneously, but you just have 500 users. So this is an over provisioned infrastructure. You did not need this large infrastructure. So most of the times when you provision an infrastructure, it be over provisioned or maybe under provisioned. Maybe your prediction was 30,000 users and in the real time you are seeing 40,000 or 45,000 users. So basically like your infrastructure is over provision under provisioned. In that case, you have more demand and the infrastructure will handle the amount of load is lesser. Your infrastructure will probably crash. Okay, so basically this was the problem in the traditional infrastructure. With cloud, these problems are solved, and specifically with services like elastic beanstalk. Okay, just not the problem of infrastructure provisioning, the problem of maintaining and managing the infrastructure also is solved. Just imagine like these servers, you're responsible of maintaining and managing these servers. So you have to maintain slash manage these servers. Okay. So you have to maintain as well as manage these servers. For example, like let's say you have to install the operating system, you have to update your operating system, you have to install all the monitoring agents, you have to configure encryption, you have to take backup of the server, you have to do all these things. And for your application to run, you have to install all the dependencies, all the libraries and dependencies for your application to run on all these servers. And if one of the servers, like let's say just because of a human error, you forgot a dependency, maybe an application entirely or a feature of your application could crash. So basically, these are the problems on the traditional infrastructure which you manually provision. But with Elastic Beanstalk, all these problems can be very simply be addressed. So when we talk about Elastic Beanstalk. So for Elastic Beanstalk, the basic fundamentals of cloud is always applicable here as well. For example, like you don't have to be prepared with the infrastructure. You are not responsible for any kind of infrastructure provisioning or planning or designing. So basically, no responsibility about infra. So you don't see any responsibility about the infrastructure. You don't need to buy servers, you don't need to buy switches, okay? You don't need to plan these resources, okay? So basically, you're not responsible of any part of IT infrastructure. In fact, you're not even responsible. You're again, it's not your responsibility, no responsibility about um, about environment. Okay, so you're not even responsible about provisioning, maintaining, or managing your environment to run your application. Imagine like you have a application developed in Java. To run this Java application, you actually need a server. Either it may have Linux or it may have some sort of Windows operating system, Windows Server or something. Okay, so if you want to run your application, your Java application on this Linux server, okay, it'd be Red Hat or maybe it can be SUSE or it can be Ubuntu. Okay, so you have a Linux server, and on top of that Linux server, on that Red Hat server, you want to run your Java application. Installing a correct version of JDK is your responsibility. You have to install JDK, else the code written in Java is not going to execute on this system. Okay. And for this code to run properly, you may require many more dependencies. Maybe there are 55 dependencies or more than that. You are responsible for installing each and every single dependency on this server all by yourself. Whereas on the other side, in the AWS world, if you're using Elastic Beanstalk, if you're not having your own on-premises server where you're defining everything manually, you're doing every single configuration by yourself. If you use Elastic Beanstalk, you don't have to do that. For example, in Elastic Beanstalk, you are first of all not responsible about provisioning or purchasing any kind of IT infrastructure. The servers, the network, the storage, the database, everything is given by AWS. You don't have to go and buy all these things. You don't have to plan, you don't have to buy. So basically, these are already available, ready-madely available into the cloud. You just have to go request, you just have to um, log into your AWS account and you have to just desire what kind of machine is your requirement. And Amazon will be provisioning that machine for you. Okay, you have to tell them by Elastic Beanstalk, in order to run your application, what is your suitable environment. For example, if your application, as discussed, is written in Java, you can choose JDK. Which version of JDK you want, you can just select the specific version of JDK, and JDK will be available to you in that machine. And all the dependencies, all those maybe like dozens of dependencies, multiple dozens of dependencies that you exactly require, they will also be available with your environment, and you can very easily run your application on top of this environment. So according to Elastic Beanstalk, developers who are not who have never managed IT infrastructure, if there is a team of developers, if they require an IT infrastructure which they could use to run their application or test their applications, but they don't know how to maintain or manage it, this is the best service. This service decouples the two responsibilities. So basically, developer no more would ever have to do any kind of maintenance on IT infrastructure, which exactly is not their profile. Developer is a person who's going to use a VS Code or some kind of IDE to design an application. He's going to be writing the code every single day, and not is not going to do any kind of maintenance on the servers. It is the responsibility of system administrators. But imagine a small company where the company cannot afford system engineers, administrators, network specialists. So basically, this company has a couple of developers, maybe three, four of them. And this company is just a startup. They don't have the capacity, the budget to buy IT infrastructure. So basically, this company can create an AWS account. And in this AWS account, they can go to the service like ElasticBeanstalk, and any developer with very minimum knowledge about IT infrastructure maintenance or management can use ElasticBeanstalk. Any developer can just go to log into AWS, go to the service of ElasticBeanstalk, choose the region of his choice under ElasticBeanstalk, and in there, he can very simply create a new environment and describe the requirements of the application. With respect to the application, he can describe the environment, okay, and very easily place his application onto this environment and get his application executed. So guys, Elastic Beanstalk is very simple, very easy. Okay. So in this lecture today, I'm going to show you a very basic introduction to Elastic Beanstalk. So what exactly we'll be doing in the next step is we'll be quickly logging in into AWS. So I'll quickly log in into my account of AWS. And so I'm logged in into my AWS account. Okay. Now, once I'm logged in into my account, the next thing I have to do, I have to set my region. I'm going to stick to North Virginia region. I'm not going to use any other region. I'm going to stick to North Virginia region. In services, if I go to compute section, in here, I should be able to see something called Elastic Beanstalk. This is used to run and manage web applications. So we'll click on Elastic Beanstalk. In Elastic Beanstalk, we are going to create a new application by clicking this button, Create Application. So we are going to configure a web server environment. If your requirement is a backend server, you can choose worker environment. Okay. So basically, if you are going to execute something like, just imagine you are going to be calculating salary slips. Okay. You are going to create salary slips of your thousands of employees of your company. So in that case, like, you can set up a worker server. This server automatically wakes up at the end of the month, somewhere on like 28th or 27th, whatever you count as the end of the month in your company. And this server is going to like pull in data about your employees, their attendances, their leaves, and all things from the database. And it is going to calculate a salary slip very simply. Like, it is going to mail the salary slip to all your employees, and it is going to save a copy of salary slip into S3 bucket, and it is going to run like only on 28th of every month at night, maybe like 11:30 or maybe like 12 a.m. okay, at night. And it is going to calculate the salary, and like it is going to send an email morning 6 o'clock to all the employees. Okay. So basically, if you are going to be like setting up such a server, a backend server, okay, which doesn't have user interface, nobody interacts with this server. This server is going to work for a couple of hours in a month. Okay. So such a server, like, you can set up with a worker environment. Okay. But if you are going to host a application server where you have a user interface, which is going to run all the time, 24/7. Okay. Because like your website, you don't know exactly when is somebody going to access your website. So your customer, your user can access your website at in the morning, in the afternoon, at late night, or any other time. So basically, your web server runs all the time, 24/7, and it has a user interface. It allows users to interact with the server. It has some ports available. So basically, like, we are going to set up a web server. Okay. So we just need to create an application. Application, you can imagine here is a container in which you have multiple environments. So I'm going to set up an application here. I'll call it like A1. You can give it a nice, understandable name according to your project. But I'm going to call it A1. And here I'm going to set up an environment with the name env1, environment1. Okay. We'll just look for the domain if this env1 is available. Env1 is available. We can check it by clicking this button of check availability. I hope like no, this is not available. Okay. If I make it like 13312, let's check if this is available. So now this one is available. So you can actually later on, if you have a domain name, and you can use your domain name instead of using this name. Okay. So for now, for this practical, we are just going to stick with this name. Okay. I'm just going to scroll down, and I'm going to use platform type, a managed platform. I don't have any custom platforms. You can see anyways, this button is grayed out. I'm going to stick to managed platform, and here you have all the platforms. Okay. So Amazon supports .NET, Docker, Go language, Java, Node.js, PHP, Python, Ruby, as well as Tomcat. I'm going to stick to PHP. I'm going to just simply help you host a index.html file. I'm going to stick to PHP. My application code I'm going to upload later on. As of now, like, we'll use the sample code provided by Amazon. Okay. In this practical itself, I'll show you how to set up your own application code and how to export it into ElasticBeanstalk. Okay. So preset, like, we need a single server. In case like you need 2 servers or 3 servers. So basically what happens here is you can choose multiple servers option, and Amazon automatically creates a load balancer, puts it behind this, like in front of these instances. Automatically your instances will be launched into a target group. So you can imagine, like, most of the things, like, imagine you're a developer, you don't know anything about load balancers or maybe like target group. You have not studied AWS with respect to infrastructure. Okay. And you don't know much about it. So basically your Elastic Beanstalk is going to handle the load balancing and other things. You don't have to do any much efforts. You don't have to put any much efforts into this. So I'm going to choose single instance, sample application. I'm going to hit on next. After waiting for some time, we can choose a service role. So many a times, like, this service role will be automatically created into IAM. If this is not there, you can create a new service role, and it automatically creates a new service role. Okay. EC2 instance profile, this is also required. Okay. What you have to do, you have to just click here, and you will be able to see an EC2 instance profile. I'll just quickly show you how I created that role 1111. I'll just go to IAM, and under IAM, we'll be clicking on roles, and here we can create roles. Now remember, guys, IAM, Identity Access Management, this is a global service. You don't have to change region in here. Okay. So guys, exactly what happens in Elastic Beanstalk is Amazon is going to launch EC2 instances. These EC2 instances, if they need to read or write a database in RDS, or maybe some kind of table in DynamoDB or some other thing like S3 bucket, you can give it permission via roles. Okay. We know roles are more safer. We can even use access key, secret access key, but we know access key and secret access key are stored unsafely in a clear text. Okay. In our AWS configuration file. Okay. So basically the access key and the secret access key is stored very unsafely, okay, into your AWS system. I'm sorry, into your EC2 instance. So if you are having EC2 instance, it is more preferred to go for rules. So with the help of rules, you will be able to give your Elastic Beanstalk environment access to database or S3 bucket or any other resource of AWS. So to create a rule, you can click create role button. You can choose an AWS service. Which specific service? We have EC2, for which we are going to give a permission. In the next step, we have to choose the permission. And in this case, as of now, my EC2 instance will not have an application which will require any sort of permission. Okay. So I can just simply skip through this page for now. Okay. And I will give a role name over here. I can call it like R123. So this is the role name. So basically what we have done, we have created a role for EC2 instance. And in this role, what we are doing, we may allow in future EC2 to read or write onto our database or onto our storage like S3. And finally, like the role can be created, like clicking the button create role, the role will be created very quickly. Okay. Once you created the role, you can go via, do a refresh here. And now you can see one more new role for EC2, that is R123 has been created. And we'll use this role, let's say. Okay. So simply guys, if your EBS application that is running into your EBS, Elastic Beanstalk, is required to access other resources of AWS. So in that case, like you can access it without any problem with the help of this role. Okay, we'll be clicking next now. So we don't need 𝐾Pair. Okay, now we can choose a custom VPC. In our practical today, we'll be skipping through these steps. In fact, we'll directly jump on to the review screen. Okay, so we are skipping at this point in time. We'll try to keep this practical as simple as possible. Okay, so everything should be good here. In the review screen, you can see all the things have been properly been configured. Here you have a lot of settings under monitoring or under instances configuration and networking. You don't have anything in networking, but there are things under instances configuration and monitoring as well. But anyway, we'll skip through this and finally we'll click submit button to launch this environment. Okay. So guys, our environment 1, env1, is being created. Okay. Now, this environment could take some time. It is going to take at least like 5 minutes. So I'm going to pause my video for 5 minutes and we'll continue after 5 minutes. Okay. So guys, we can see our environment has successfully launched. After waiting for a couple of minutes extra after creating this environment, we can click on this link here. Upon clicking on this link, we should be able to see the default application that is provided by Amazon into the Elastic Beanstalk environment, and it is this application. So this is the default application that Amazon provides us. We can do a thing, we can create a custom HTML document and we can push it into this environment, and we can check on the same link if that application is visible to us. So the procedures to do these things are very simple. You just create a directory in your computer somewhere. I'm creating a C part on my C directory, C partition. I'm creating a new directory over here called app1. In this app1 directory, I'll create a new file, a text document. It's just a notepad file, and I'll call it like index.html. And after creating this file, I'll right click on it and open with notepad. So we'll be creating a simple HTML document in here. And okay, so guys, I have just created a simple index.html file with header1. Okay, and I'll just save this and close it. After completing this HTML document, what you have to do is, instead of using any kind of compression utility, whether it be WinRAR, WinZip, or any other thing, what you can do is you can right click your index.html. Okay, this file, you have to click upon the file. Please take a note, you don't have to right click over here. You have to select your file, right click your file, and upon right clicking here, you will be able to get an option compress to zip if you're using Windows 11. If you're using any older version of Windows, so you will be seeing an interface such as this one. Okay, even I have 7-zip or WinRAR. I'm not going to use these utilities. I'm going to send to and compress it as an archive. Remember, you don't have to compress it. You have to just create an archive of this file. Okay, so you have to use the default compression or archival tools available within your system. You don't have to use anything special like WinZip, WinRAR, 7-zip, okay, any of these utilities. So I'm going to just compress it. Okay, I'm going to call it like V1. Okay, so I'll call app1 underscore V1. Okay, so this is the first version of my application. Fine, like once you have your application hosted here in your environment, that was the sample application provided by AWS. We can do is we can click upload and deploy button. Upon clicking this button, you can choose the file wherever it is. In our case, it is on my C partition. I'm just quickly going to go on to my C partition. Go to app1, and under app1, we have the zip file. Remember, you don't have to upload the index.html file. You have to upload the zip file, okay, which has your index.html, and just click open button here. And you can give a version label. So basically, it automatically picked up the version label from here, and it automatically arranged it into its favorable format. And we are good with this, okay. And like, let's say we can click deploy button. We have to wait a few seconds, maybe like depending on the size of your application, you may have to wait a couple of minutes, but it is not going to take a lot of time. Okay. Once you push the application, once you upload or deploy use upload or deploy application button to push your application into this environment, it is not going to take a lot of time. Okay. So if I go to the adjacent page where I use this URL to access my application, if I do Control F5 after a few seconds, you can see still my application is not available over here. We'll have to wait some more time. Now you can see like Elastic Beanstalk is updating your environment. It is updating. As a result, we were not able to see the latest version of the application. We'll have to wait a few more seconds. Let's see how much time it takes. So guys, after waiting for a minute or two, we can see the environment has update successfully completed. Environment update successfully completed. And this time, if I go to my JSON page where exactly I can see the default application of AWS, if I do a control F5 on this same URL, we should be able to see our application instantly. So guys, Amazon's Elastic Beanstalk is a very useful utility for developers. If you're a developer and maybe like you work for an organization where you are required to develop application, put it onto a server, test it or host it, and you don't know about how to maintain the server, how to like push your application onto an enterprise server, you have never worked with any kind of DevOps tools, or you don't know any kind of maintenance procedures of servers. So basically, it becomes very easy to you to use Elastic Beanstalk. You just have to zip your application, or let's say if your application has been developed into a more complicated manner, like you are using something like some libraries or some advanced um, products you are using, maybe like you have developed a Java application, you'll have to build it with Maven and or Gradle, whichever will be suitable according to your organization. Okay, and as per your application, more importantly. So depending on what kind of application you are developing, build process of your application is going to change. It's going to vary every single time. Okay. So when if you are going to set up a, I'm sorry. So if you're going to just host an index.html page, so choose the environment of PHP, and for index.html, you just have to right click your index.html file and compress it using your default operating system compression tool. Okay, don't be using like anything like WinZip, WinRAR, or on a Linux system, don't try tar and other things. Okay, so just use the simple zip option available by default with your operating system to zip your application files, and this zip file has to be uploaded into Elastic Beanstalk. So guys, for today's lecture, this was all that we were supposed to cover. In this lecture, we have seen the fundamentals of Elastic Beanstalk. I've shown you what is, I've explained you what exactly is Elastic Beanstalk, how useful it is, and we have just talked the basic concepts of Elastic Beanstalk, and I've shown you how to implement it on your like AWS portal. Okay. In the next lecture, we'll be moving a bit detail into Elastic Beanstalk. So guys, for today, this is all that we are up to, and if you want any other specific lecture, so please come to the comment section and let us know what specific topic do you want us to cover in this live series. So guys, if you have any comments, any feedbacks, please be putting it into the comment area. So guys, for today, this was all that we were supposed to do. We'll meet you very soon. Good day, guys. Goodbye.